Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's CSUBUY P2P Accounts Payable Receiving session. So this session is designed to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the accounts payable and receiving functions within the CSUBUY P2P system. Let's take a quick overview of what we're going to be covering today. So we're excited to walk you through some of the key functions related to voucher process in the system. Demonstration 1, I'll focus on how to locate vouchers and check their payment status. This is helpful when you need to track where a payment is at in process for a supplier. In demonstration number 2, Michelle Anderson, Cal Poly's Payment Services Manager, is going to guide you through the step-by-step process of creating a voucher from an invoice. Then in demonstration number 3, I'll shift to receiving, which includes creating a quantity receipt or performing a voucher approval. Both are necessary workflow steps that must be completed on the voucher. And then finally, Michelle is going to wrap up with demonstration number 4. We'll walk through the actions you can take on a voucher, including understanding possible additional workflow steps. Each of these demonstrations is designed to give you a viewing into how to navigate voucher functions within the CSUBUY P2P system to ensure a smooth processing for your campus. So let's go ahead and get started with demonstration number 1. Okay. So now that we're in the live CSUBUY P2P system, this is the default shopping homepage. From here, let's go ahead and view all the different locations you can search from a voucher. On the top search bar, you can search from a voucher. You can also select voucher and put in the voucher number if you know it. Under order search, you can find your shortcuts to find my vouchers. On the flyouts under orders, you can search my orders and my vouchers. If you want to search all vouchers within your campus, you can do search and search vouchers. And the last place is under the accounts payable flyout, where you can go ahead and search for vouchers here. So let's search for some vouchers. When you're searching for vouchers, just like requisitions or POs, it's always going to default to creating within the last 90 days. You have the ability to go ahead and modify that based on what you want to view. The next thing that we can go ahead and look at are the quick filters on the left-hand side. So you can quickly filter these vouchers based on supplier, voucher status, type, source. And you can see there's many quick filters that you can utilize to go ahead and quickly filter down the vouchers that you want to view. What's great on here is just like searching for requisitions and POs is that you have this gear icon right here. This allows you to configure your column display, such as your vouchers numbers, submitted date, source. You have the ability right here to go ahead and move or remove certain column figurations that are displayed. On the left-hand side, you have the ability to add and remove different kind of filters for your vouchers to view in the column display. What I like to utilize is the add filter section. Let's go ahead and view filters based on their pay status. So I'm going to go ahead and put in pay and select pay status. It's going to populate on the left-hand side and allow you to narrow down your pay statuses. There's cancel, dispute, in process, which means that a voucher's been created. However, not all of the workflow steps have been completed. Payable, which means that a voucher has completed all of the workflow steps and it's next up in line to get paid. And then finally, paid vouchers. So let's go ahead and look at vouchers that are in process. We can select the voucher by selecting the blue hyperlink voucher number. Now, this is a voucher that has a pay status of in process, which means that the summary section, it's pending, and the workflow steps have been yet to be completed. So we can see that it's at the verified receive step, which is one of the receiving workflow steps, and then it still needs to complete the AP review and AP manager step. This invoice validation step is a background system step that does automatically. Then it'll be okay to pay, auto close the PO, and then it'll be finished. Under the payment status, you can also locate the pay status right here of in process. Once the voucher has been paid, all of these elements will automatically be populated. Let's go ahead and view vouchers at a different pay status. Once again, I'm going to utilize the Accounts Payable flyout and search for vouchers. Once again, we can see that my PIN filter, but we added that pay status is at the payable. Let's go ahead and change. We were at the in progress. Now let's go ahead and change to the payable status. We can apply that. And we can navigate to the vouchers that are in the payable status by selecting the blue hyperlink voucher number. So this means that the workflow steps have been completed. We can see it has a green success banner right here and states complete. We can also notice that all of the workflow steps have been completed and now has a pay status of payable, meaning that it's up next in line to get paid based on the supplier's payment method. This is a check supplier, and the actual accounting date. So it will get paid on our next check run based on the amount listed. Now let's go ahead and view a voucher that's been paid and having all of these elements populated. Once again, we're going to go to Accounts Payable flyout and search for vouchers. We're going to modify this pay status filter to paid and uncheck mark payable so we can only view vouchers that are in the paid status. Once again, you can locate the voucher by selecting the blue hyperlink number. The other columns we can go ahead and view as well. So here's the invoice number itself, the supplier. You can quickly navigate to the PO that this voucher was created for. The voucher status complete, meaning that it's completed all of the workflow steps. When it was created, if it had a discount date and a discount amount, when the voucher was submitted, the type of source the voucher is, and we'll go over that with Michelle. Was it automated or was it manually created? The type of voucher, the pay status, we can see that we just went and put that filter in all paid, and the total amount. Once again, you can use the gear icon to modify what you'd like to see on your column configurations. Let's go ahead and view the voucher itself. We can see once again, all of the workflow steps have been completed. And now that the voucher has been paid, so we can look under the payment information and see the payment method. It was check. The payment record number, which is the check number. The payment record date, reference ID, how much the voucher was, so we can see it was the amount, and how much was paid total. If there were any partial payments, it'd be listed right here. So we can see that the supplier, Verizon, was paid via a check on, let's see here, 3/25/25 in the amount of $2,914.89. So for searching for vouchers, you have multiple areas that you can search depending on if you want to search for your campus-wide or for your own vouchers, or if you have a voucher number. Remember, you can also search under My Orders, My Vouchers for your vouchers that are tied to your purchase orders. Or if you want to search all vouchers, you can go to Search and Vouchers. So now we're going to move on to demonstration number 2 and allow Michelle to share on how to process and create a voucher from an invoice.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so at Cal Poly SLO, we do manual voucher entries via receiving invoices in email. And we have a specific email set up for CSUBUY-payment that we request anyone that requires a manual entry for a voucher to email us using that email address. So we start out, and it does go to the main email address and we forward and have payment tax assigned to specific departments. And so we can help our clients easily by directing invoices to the appropriate payment tech. So I am going to share my screen once I can find the window where it is. Too many windows open. There we go. And I am going to be inputting this invoice from the sign place. So I just wanted to show you a visual of that. So to start out, the way that we have found works well is to actually begin with the PO number that we do request all of our invoices have.
Michelle,
So, yes.
are you sharing your screen right now?
I thought so. I apologize.
Am I the only one who can't see it?
Thank you for the heads
Okay.
up, because I thought I was.
Gotta love Zoom.
I know. As long as...
Thank you. Yep, that works.
Okay. Can you see CSUBUY?
It's pulling up on my screen, but I should be able.
Okay.
Yep,
Perfect.
we can.
Thanks for the heads up.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to start back at the home page and just show you a quick picture. So this is the invoice that I am going to be inputting manually. So I'll start at the CSUBUY homepage. And the best way that we have found to kind of expedite entering the invoice manually is to actually start with the PO number that is on the invoice. So I'll put the PO number right up in the search box and search for that PO. So then I'll actually click on the PO number, which is a hyperlink, and pull up the specific PO. Now, if you see, oftentimes what I've noticed is that a DBA will be different on the invoice than the actual paid to or actual W-9 name for the company. You can easily see if the company matches what the invoice is by clicking on the hyperlink for the supplier. And you can see it does say the sign place, which is the invoice that I received and I'm going to be entering. So that's just a way to double check that you have the correct supplier if the name doesn't immediately match. So I started the PO and all of the different tabs that are at the top, I actually first look to see if there are any vouchers attached to it already. So I click on the vouchers. There is nothing entered for this particular PO. So to add manually a new voucher, I'm going to click the plus sign here to create voucher. And it takes me to the voucher entry page. First thing that we do when we are entering manual vouchers is up here, the ellipse that's up in the upper right-hand corner where it says voucher actions. And also, just to check in with everybody, is the size of the screen okay? Can you guys see it?
Yes,
okay.
Correct, Michelle.
Perfect, thank you. So I click on the ellipsis and I'm going to add voucher image. Click on that, and then you can either drag and drop your invoice into here, or you can browse and select the invoice. I usually just save them to the downloads so that I can easily access them. And then once you see the little green check mark down in the add voucher image, that's when you know it's ready to actually save the changes. If you've made a mistake, you can also hit the trash can at this point to be able to remove whatever is selected for the actual voucher image. So I'm going to save the changes, and it will bring up and show me the invoice that I just connected to this voucher that I'm creating. The first screen that it shows you here is the entry screen when you are entering a voucher. For our entries, we normally will not fill out our information on this entry screen, but will instead go over to the summary screen. You can put in information on this entry screen. It just is more basic information than what we like to have entered on our vouchers right from the get-go. So I'm going to click on the summary screen. It saves our actual invoice image over here on the right-hand side. And you can also see at this point, it shows draft up in the upper right-hand corner. So you know that you're in the draft mode for creating this voucher. Now, the good part is if something happens, you get out of this, everything will actually be saved for you in a draft folder. And if I go over here to the left with my drop downs and I go over vouchers, you can actually look over here, search for vouchers, search for direct, and I believe June already covered those with you, but there's multiple ways where you can find this once you, if something happens and you don't get to finish it right away. So I'm on the summary screen now. I usually will work with two screens to more easily be able to enter the vouchers, because I have found that the image it shows you when you're entering isn't always as large as you can make it on a separate screen. So I'll work with the actual invoice on one screen and the entry on the other. So to enter the invoice details under general information, I'm going to click on the pencil, and this will open up all the basic information that I'm obtaining from my invoice, starting with the invoice number. And I usually copy and paste whenever possible just to prevent any errors. The invoice date is important, of course, and I see, and that's always fun trying to find for everybody what the different invoice dates are. And it was 3/21 in this case. And you can click on the calendar to select your date, or you can also manually enter the invoice date instead of clicking on the calendar. Your accounting date will automatically go in as today's date, whatever date you are entering the voucher. That is something through the approval process that I'll mention again. You always want to make sure that your accounting date when you're processing for final approval is in the current month. We have it set for net 30 for our standard payment terms, which I believe CSU is standardized for that. But there are also ways to override those standard payment terms if there is an agreement with a supplier for something other than the net 30. And you can just click on the down arrow and see a variety of payment terms. But this is net 30, so I'm going to leave that. And if you scroll down, it does show you just buyer information and some other details. The main things are the invoice number, the invoice date, and your payment term. And then I click Save. So we're still in draft, but that is my initial entry for the invoice. I'm going to then scroll down to the actual line items from the purchase order, and these all pull in from the purchase order. When we have large purchase orders that have multiple lines, it's always important to confirm whatever invoice is being received actually matches up with the line that you're entering the invoice for. In this case, for this voucher, it's a direct match for the invoice compared to line 1 of our PO. So we see here $5,963.50 is on the invoice. 569349 is on the actual PO. And it appears that it is possibly a rounding situation because our unit cost is 172.53, quantity is 33, those match up. So it is a slight variance for rounding. And I will address that through the approval process. And oftentimes when we run into those, if it's a small variance for rounding, then we can compensate that through various ways, particularly not ideal, but we end up using the shipping line to help balance the voucher to the actual invoice because that's a non-taxed line. That's one of the ways to deal with a slight variance. If there's a large variance, that always has to go through the buyer. And it's one of the quirks of the system that is always, we're always looking at ways for improvement in the system. I know those that are on it now, we're always trying to figure out how everything works best. And that is one way we found for very small discrepancies to be able to balance everything. So I'm going to leave it as is at this point, the $6,106.27. It's 1 penny off at this stage. But at this stage, I am going to go ahead and hit complete up here. And that is going to actually enter the voucher into the system. And it takes a moment for it to think about it. Once you see this lovely green screen that says voucher submitted, you know that what you did just worked. So that's always a good thing. Now, you'll also see here the voucher number is also a hyperlink as it's highlighted in blue. And the created for PO number is another hyperlink that's created in blue. So in this case, what I often do is click on the PO because I want to see that this voucher is real now in system. And as you can see, it used to not have anything attached to the voucher tab. Now it has a 1 next to the vouchers in the PO. So we went back to the PO through the hyperlink. If I click on the voucher tab here, now I can see that my new voucher has been created. I have a voucher number. It shows me the invoice number, the date of the invoice, our 30 days is going to be due in April, and it's showing in process now. And now if I click on my hyperlink for the voucher, this is now live in system and can go through the workflow to be approved and paid. The invoice is attached. I see a summary of the totals here on the right-hand side. I've got hyperlinks to the purchase order and to the even to the requisition here. And as I scroll down, you can actually see the what's next, which is very valuable when you're trying to, if somebody asks, where is my voucher at? And they're not sure where we stand with payment. This shows you the different steps that we have set up for Cal Poly. It is already been validated. That's step 1. So we know that it's live in system and it's ready for the verify receive step. And it will go through. I love this quick snapshot to be able to see where all of these steps are for a voucher and payment. So that's the basics of entering a voucher manually. We do try to encourage our suppliers to enter their vouchers because, as you can see, especially with big invoices, it can be quite time consuming. So the more we can have our suppliers enter the vouchers, the better, because then we are just working the actual workflow for the voucher and confirming everything instead of doing the data entry process. Am I missing anything, June?
No, that was fantastic.
Okay.
Great. So Michelle was able to go over the process of creating a voucher, and that is done through an invoice. So I always let our clients know for a voucher to be created, an invoice either needs to be uploaded by the supplier themselves through their portal or emailed to our CSUBUY-payment email account, where there is a little bit of a delay since the voucher has to be manually created. And so vouchers are not automatically created like a PO is automatically created. It takes some momentum for a voucher to be created, and that is with the invoice itself being uploaded into the system. Michelle left off at what the first workflow step is on vouchers, which is our receiving workflow step. We have 2 different types of workflow steps for receiving, so we're going to go over both of those. Once again, I'm going to navigate and search for vouchers. And what I like to do when searching for vouchers that are at those workflow steps is to add a filter. So I'm going to go over and add a filter, and I'm going to put in workflow step and find the current workflow step. So I want to search for vouchers that are at the current workflow step of hold for receiving. Now, hold for receiving indicates that the requester, whoever submitted the requisition, who is now the PO owner and the voucher owner, that they need to go ahead and receive on goods that they requested in the system. So let's navigate to a voucher that is at the hold for receiving workflow step. We can see over in the workflow summary on the right-hand side, go ahead and scroll down, that is at the hold for receiving. This is the first workflow step that a client actually has to complete. You can see it was submitted, the tax was calculated, and there was a background validation step. These were all system steps and automatically worked through. Now it's at the hold for receiving step, which indicates a good was ordered or requested. So we can see right here, the individual, the client requested IT hardware and Apple MacBook Pro. So it's going to populate the hold for receiving workflow step. Now that indicates that a quantity receipt needs to be created on the purchase order. Now you can see the hold for receiving step does not have a name tied to it. That indicates that anyone in the system can create a receipt on anyone's purchase order to complete this workflow step. So what we're going to do is complete this quantity receipt. The receipts are created once again on the purchase order, not on the voucher itself. So we have to navigate to the purchase order, and you can do that through the related documents. So we can go straight to the purchase order itself. And on the top header, you'll have a section called receipts. We can select the receipts header, and to create a quantity receipt, you would select the plus sign. From there, it's called a quantity receipt because it allows you to receive on just the line items that you have received on. So on the top gray area, you can select all line items if you received all of them, or you can individually select which line items that you have received. Let's go ahead and state that we have received the computer itself and the DEP. We can create a quantity receipt. What's great on the quantity receipt, it allows you to modify the quantity. So say you only received one of the Apple MacBook Pros, you can modify the quantity to 1. You also have the ability to modify the status. From this dropdown, you have received, if it was returned, or if it was canceled. And you can do that for each of the line items that you selected when you initiated this quantity receipt. On the top here, you can select complete, or if you created this on accident, you have the ability to delete. Let's go ahead and select complete. It's going to pull up the receipt number itself, hyperlink to it, as well as the purchase order. What's great about receipts is receipts have the ability to be reopened. Say you created the receipt on accident, or you actually received more than what you stated in the quantity. You can reopen the receipt. You're going to have to state why you need to open it. And then from there, you have the ability to modify your receipt if you want to go ahead and say, oh yes, I did receive both of these laptops, and you can select complete. Or if you created the receipt on accident, you have the ability at this point to go ahead and delete the receipt. Let's go ahead and delete the receipt. There we go. Okay. And then it's going to automatically default you to your draft receipts folder. So these are all the draft receipts that I've created. Let's go ahead and look where you would find these draft receipts. Once again, it's the accounts payable flyout, and you can go to receipts, view draft receipts, search for receipts that you created, or you can create a new receipt from this section. When you create a new receipt from the flyout, you do have to have the purchase order number available since the quantity receipt is created on the purchase order itself. Let's go ahead and navigate back to the home landing page and view vouchers that are at the other receiving step, which is called verified received. So once again, I'm going to add a filter, if you didn't pin it yet, you can go workflow step, current workflow step. And now I'm going to select verified received. So now we're going to view all of the vouchers that have been created within the last 90 days that are at the current workflow step of verified received. If you wanted to pin this filter, you can go up here and pin it. You also have the ability to go ahead and remove the pin once you pin it as well. Let's navigate to this first voucher that's at the verified receive step. So this verified receive step indicates that a service was requested. We can go ahead and view the workflow step and see that it states verified received. What's different compared to the hold for receiving where there was no name listed, the verified receive step is tied to the actual voucher owner, who is the requester that submitted the requisition into workflow. So only Jen can receive on this voucher. She needs to inform the system itself and the accounts payable team that she received the services she requested from this supplier. The verified receive step indicates that you need to perform what's called a voucher approval. The voucher approval is completed on the voucher itself, and there will be a red approve button. And we'll look at one that I have next up in line. So verified received indicates that the client needs to perform a voucher approval on the voucher itself. So I always think of V, V, and V. Verified received, voucher approval completed on the voucher itself. Hold for receiving indicates that you need to create a quantity receipt on the purchase order, and anyone can create a receipt and reopen a receipt. However, only the PO owner, who is the voucher owner, can complete the verified receive step, indicating that you received services on the voucher itself. So let's go ahead and look at if you were a client and you had a voucher at the verified receive step, indicating you need to perform what's called a voucher approval. Just like in the other demonstrations where we went over DOA approvers and approvers, there are approvals listed in this approval folder on the shopping homepage. You can see that there's a voucher. Here is the quick navigation to it through the hyperlink, the folder name, so it's under My Voucher Approvals, and how many days it's been in the folder. So this indicates that this voucher is at the verified receive step. It is pending for me to complete a voucher approval on the voucher itself. So let's navigate to it. So now we can go ahead and view. This is a verified receive step. It's tied to myself, so I'm the only individual that can complete this workflow step. And you would simply say, yes, I approve this voucher. I have received the services from this supplier, and now it can move on to the next workflow step, which is AP review. So most of all of our vouchers indicate that there is a receiving step required. Either it's going to be hold for receiving or verified received. Some of our vouchers, if you have a mixed bag, meaning that you're ordering goods and services, may indicate and have both workflow steps, hold for receiving and verified received, listed on the voucher itself. So that is how Cal Poly completes our receiving workflow step. The receiving workflow step is always the first workflow step on a voucher. That hold for receiving is creating a receipt on the purchase order. The verified receive is completing a voucher approval on the voucher itself. So now I'm going to have Michelle go into the actual vouchers and go over how the AP manager will complete their workflow steps, the actions the AP or AP manager can take on a voucher, as well as if there are any additional workflow steps, such as secondary signature approval. So I'm going to go ahead and let Michelle share and go over voucher functionalities.
Slight moment of panic when my internet just went out here at our building. Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay, can you see CSUBUY again?
Yes, great,
Perfect.
Michelle.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna just start back at the home page again and show you how I navigate to this. Hopefully the internet stays with me now. Okay, so from the home screen, if I want to work in my usual manner as an AP manager, I have AP Manager Review as my primary functionality, which is part of the workflow that we here at Cal Poly chose for our campus. There are slight variations to what your workflows may be based on what decisions are made for your particular campuses. But to get into the approvals area, I always go right through the left-hand page here. Under Accounts Payable, there's a little building that I'm thinking is a treasury building. That's in my imagination, of course. I click on that and it goes to Accounts Payable, and there's an Approvals tab. And then you can see from approvals, there's vouchers to approve. I can also go directly to vouchers that were recently approved by me if I want to double check something. I can assign substitute approvers for vouchers through here, and I can also look at approval notifications. I go to most regularly my vouchers to approve because that's my main workflow where I'm going to be approving vouchers that are in my queue as AP manager. So my permission is set for AP Manager Review. Depending on what permissions you have set for a particular role at your university, that will vary on how you see this screen. I can see all of my payment checks and what are in their AP review workflow steps. I also can see matching exceptions, canceled closed POs, as well as my main queue for my AP Manager Review. Now, touch slightly on matching exceptions, because when June was showing the receiving step, this is often where we'll run into situations where maybe receiving hasn't been completed, and so a voucher will show unmatched because it hasn't been confirmed that the item was actually received. So when I click on the little caret, it opens up the two vouchers that are in the matching exceptions, and I can see that there are two that show unmatched. The first one, the nice part about this queue also is it immediately calls out what the reason for the mismatch is. And in this first one, it shows it's overpriced, which means that the price that came through for the voucher is over what was allotted on the PO. And for those, we work directly with procurement to get to the bottom of it and find out, okay, what's going on and how to handle that. So we work very much with procurement and work as a team to solve certain situations like that. The other one, an Amazon order, there's no receipt. So this is where somebody may have just forgotten to receive it. And there is an automated workflow that after a certain number of days, the system will automatically push the voucher forward to the AP review and the AP Manager Review steps to be able to keep it flowing in the system. So if we have a situation that we do not have the receiving step completed, I'll go into that voucher, verify by clicking on this matching tab at the top. And here I'm seeing yellow. Whenever there's yellow, that means that there's a mismatch. So for this particular line on this order for Amazon, it was not received. And if I scroll down, everything else is blue except for that one line. So at this point, there's a couple of cool features of the system. We can actually revert this particular voucher back to the receiving step so that the voucher owner can receive the item. And that is done by over here on the right-hand side under our What's Next workflow. I click on the ellipsis and it says revert workflow to a previous step. So when I click on that, it's going to show me what steps are actually available that I can send it back to. And in this case, hold for receiving, I can select that and type in a note as far as why I'm sending it back there. And I usually will put receiving step must be completed. and then I click revert, and it will actually go back to that hold for receiving step. And on the actual voucher now, you will see a little yellow triangle, kind of a warning that you're reviewing a voucher that was reverted to a previous step. That's just showing you that, hey, this voucher has actually now been sent back to receiving. At the same time, after I do that, I also go to my comments tab and send an email to the voucher owner so that we can get that line received, or get the communication if there was a problem with the order and maybe that item wasn't received. But that way we're actually sending an email directly to the individual to let them know we need your help and we need this received. Now, Diana, one of the payment techs, already sent out an email just yesterday. Even though she sent one out, what I would generally do would just do a quick follow-up with that voucher owner also, so they know that it is back in their receiving step. So that's one of the really cool features that is available for solving some of our receiving situations.
And Michelle, just to let them know, so the workflow step for holder receiving states completed, and that's because it was bypassed after 30 days. So if the hold for receiving or verified receive step is not completed within the 30 days, it automatically completes the step and moves to the AP step. So that's how it went to the AP step, got approved, and then went to the matching exceptions. So then they were able to see that the workflow step was bypassed because it was beyond the 30 days of being at the workflow step, and triggers the AP manager, Michelle, to reach out to the PO owner and let them know that they still need to complete the hold for receiving, creating a receipt on the PO.
Thanks, June. And that's where also the payment techs can see that. And so that's where Diana had also sent out the message. She still sent it to me in the workflow so that I could then also interject as needed. And it doesn't slow it down other than just to hold that receiving step. So then when I went back, what I did is I went back to my approvals, vouchers to approve queue. And since I was working in that matched exceptions, it stays open for me in that. As you can see, now there's only one item in there because I reverted the voucher for that Amazon order back to a previous step. So it has gone backwards in the workflow so that that receiving step can be completed. Now, as I said, my main one that I work in daily is my AP manager review. And this is where all the final approvals happen for vouchers to be paid and actually get to the check, EFT or ACH check, to the runs to actually get the payment made. I am going to, now you can select the order that you see your vouchers in, which is also a nice feature. I always have it set so that I see the oldest vouchers first in the sense of what the due date is. So as you can see on this page, it shows the due date of 4/4. So these are more current. When we do get manual voucher entries for older entries, that's why it's important to enter in the invoice date, because it will set that date for the due date based on what the invoice date is. So I always have it so that any old ones that we might get through the system manually, we can address those first and get those paid. One I'm going to show you. So to actually work this voucher for my step, I'm going to select this particular voucher, and you just click on the hyperlink and it opens up the voucher. So this is Hensel Phelps Construction. A couple things immediately when I pull open this voucher, I always look to the right-hand side to see where my invoice is. And in this particular case, I don't see an invoice. So then I'm like, okay, I have to add the invoice image. This is an example of a supplier entered voucher. So they uploaded their invoice. They don't see everything the same way that we do in AP. Where we find most of the invoices associated with the supplier uploads are right under the attachments page or tab. So In order to be able to attach this voucher image from that attachment screen, I'm going to assign this voucher to myself. So I'm going to click assign. And now this opens up full capability to be able to make edits on this voucher. So then I'm going to click on attachments. And here is where this is the actual voucher or the invoice that the supplier entered. And I'm going to click on select voucher image. You see a little drop down here. It does have to be a PDF in order to be able to attach it. That's just a note. Sometimes you'll see Word documents, Excel documents. I always print to PDF to get them to appear as an actual image. So that's just a little hint for you all. So I click on select that, and then I click add selected. And then I see it actually appear below. If you pick the wrong one, because a lot of times we'll have multiple attachments, you can always use the little trash can and put it back in the bucket and then select the one you really want to. You can also select more than one. So if you've got documentation that supporting that you want people to be able to see whenever they are reviewing this, you can select more than one item for your voucher image. So I select that and then I click submit. And now it appears over here on the right-hand side so that I actually have my voucher image. From there, I go back to my summary screen because this is the main screen that I work on when I am approving a voucher. And when I am approving a voucher, I also pull up the image of the invoice itself because I want to verify that everything that is on this invoice actually matches what I'm approving. So I look at the total first, the 137,391, that matches up 137,391. Because this is a construction related invoice, Pencil Phelps, I do like the way he does his uploads because he provides also supporting documentation. You can increase the image size to be able to better see all of the detail. And then there is capability, just like with most Windows things, to be able to move things around so you can see everything that you need to. And on his second document, it also matches the 137,391. So that's a good thing. This is where we can also make adjustments. If for some reason we see that there is an error in the voucher, we can make the adjustments still in our AP step, in our AP review step, our AP manager review step. We have that capability to make any corrections. Other things that I look for when I'm approving are the accounting date. That's always important, as I said, because we want to make sure we're in the current month for the accounting date. And when I scroll down, I just kind of take a glance at what the actual merchandise or services were rendered to make sure those match up. So I start on this summary screen, review those things. If there is tax, I confirm that the tax is visible and that it is actually listed. If it's an item that was supposed to be taxed, we know we have to actually utilize and pay use tax. So we do have the ability to enter use tax on this screen as well. And I'll just show you where you would do that. It's under additional information. There's a little pencil and you have to have it assigned to yourself to be able to access all of this, which I showed you how to assign it. You actually have the capability here to be able to calculate and enter your use tax here so that it will carry over into PeopleSoft so that it can be handled correctly. You can also add shipping, which is the non-taxed line, and handling is a taxed line, just for reference. So we do have some abilities to be able to make sure all of those are in the correct places and that the numbers all add up. The next tab here at the top is the tax details tab. Now this is where on a taxed invoice, we should see actual taxable amounts here. And at Cal Poly Flow, we have specific tax codes set up for our campus to use. You will all have your own set of tax codes that are set up based on your business, and you'll have your areas dependent on the different tax codes in use. So that is something that's unique to the campuses depending on your sales tax. So I always check that and make sure that we don't have a tax discrepancy and that we are showing the tax amount if it's applicable. This is services, so we will not have tax in this example. So from tax, and we can adjust those. If we see errors, we can make adjustments. I'm not going to get into all the good details of that today, though. The next thing I look for, just as verification, is that everything is matched. So I click on the matching tab at the top and I scroll through this and everything should be blue. This is where, as a double check, if I'd seen anything yellow, I know that something's not matched up and I need to do some research and find out why it's not matched. Was it not received? Was it overpriced? Those are a couple of the common ones. But this is all blue. That means we're good to go. It's matched up. The other thing I look for when doing a voucher review for approval is the comments, because I want to see if there's any history in here that might mean I either need to hold on to the voucher for a little while or send it back. This is a very important feature, the comments, because this is where all of our communication and any nuances to a voucher and invoice we would want to have notated here. So when I'm doing my approval, it immediately reverts to voucher, but you can click on the caret to actually do a drop down, and I select all, and then it will pull up any comments that have been entered for this particular transaction, all the way from requisition, purchase order. You can see everything when you select all, and it highlights for you where the comment was actually made. So I see there were 3 different comments related to the purchase order and back at the original requisition. So you can kind of see what happened with this purchase order along the way and what's been approved and whatnot. So it's a very valuable tool. This is also a main section where we communicate with all of our stakeholders related to this voucher. So this is where you can add comments to anybody that needs to know, basically related to the voucher, or if there's any questions related to it. So I always check that before doing an approval. Once I've gone through that and everything matches up, I go ahead and at the top, it says approve, complete, and show next. There's also a drop down next to it. So just for example, say if there was something wrong with this voucher and we needed to just reject it and start fresh, at the very bottom of the list is reject voucher. So this is where I would actually select reject voucher. It's going to cancel the voucher in the system so that we can re-enter it once any corrections have been made, say to the PO or anything. There's various reasons. Sometimes it's just an error that is a quick re-vouchering, but that's another valuable tool, is to be able to use this drop down to select the various actions that you want to take with a voucher. So rejecting voucher, when you do click on that, I'm not going to do that because this one's actually ready to go. When you reject it, you put in a comment as far as why you're rejecting it. And then as just for good practice, I will also send a comment to whoever is responsible or is the voucher owner or the PO owner, so that they're aware I'm rejecting this, whether it needs to be corrected in the PO somehow or whether I'm just re-entering. That's just a good communication step so everybody knows what's going on. And I'll do that through the comment section. But so for this one, because I reviewed everything, it looks good, I will go ahead and I'm going to click the approve, complete, and show next. Before I click it, I want to show you over on the right here where the workflow steps are. Our particular workflow is set up so that anything $15,000 or more also goes to a secondary signature review. So this goes to our associate controller after it goes from my AP manager approval workflow. Once I've reviewed it and approved it, it goes to a second signature review. And that way, any large ticket items are getting a second set of eyes for that approval. So I'm going to approve and complete. And it will automatically pull up my next voucher in that nice list of voucher approvals that I have. So there's a basic one, and you can see I got 259. So I've got some work cut out for me. And that's because it's always active and we're always paying more bills, and that's good because we need to keep the schools going. So that's the gist of it. There's tons of capabilities. It's constantly evolving, and we're constantly learning as we go. And I think you guys are going to have a great experience with it.
Thank you, Michelle. Now, as you notice in Michelle's workflow and their approval, just like the DOA approvers and other approvers, the functionality allows when you assign it to yourself. So once you assign a voucher or a requisition to yourself, then having that drop down will increase the abilities that you have on the voucher, such as either returning it, rejecting it, forwarding it, putting it on hold, or just approving it. So as we wrap up today's session, I just want to take a moment to reflect on where we are in the full CSUBUY procure to pay workflow. So in our previous demonstrations, we walked through every step leading up to receiving, starting with shopper, moving to requester, DOA approver, and then finally procurement. These steps are all about setting up the requisition, getting the necessary approvals, and generating the purchase order. Now, these earlier sessions focused on how the requisition is created, routed, approved, and converted to a PO. Today's focus was on the remaining critical steps that complete the payment cycle. So locating and reviewing voucher status and payment details, creating a voucher from an invoice. Remember, an invoice is what creates a voucher. Performing the receiving process, including creating a quantity receipt for that hold for receiving step on the purchase order. And then also that verified receipt step, completing the voucher approval on the voucher itself, and reviewing its impacts on the voucher. We also went through the actions that can be taken on a voucher and how it moves through its final workflow steps. Now together, these steps complete the final stretch of the procure to pay life cycle from shopping to payment. So we just want to say thank you for joining us for this 4-part P2P review session as you prepare for your campus's transition to the CSUBUY procure to pay session. So as you move closer to go live, remember, you're not alone. We really hope that this information shared during this preview session has helped build a strong, solid foundation of what's ahead for you guys. Thank you again for your time. Wishing you all the best as you move forward with CSUBUY P2P.